Today we'll cover strategies and case studies to monetize existing online content through a sound mix of advertising, sponsorships, and partnerships, as well as advertiser engagement, how to create custom online opportunities for your advertisers using audience and editorial strengths. So I wanted to start today with a few key assumptions about audiences. For most, your online audiences are growing faster than your print audiences. And one of the things that's really important there is that if you look at your Facebook and your Twitter feed or your Instagram feed, those audiences are growing a lot faster than, say, your print subscribers for most of you. Some of you that may not be the case. And this is not to say that those audiences online are larger, although for some that might be the case as well. But they are growing faster. And one of the reasons this is because the ask of our print subscribers is more expensive to the audience than the ask for our online audience. In other words, joining or following a feed on Facebook or Twitter, right, is not, there's no cost to that for the reader or the subscriber. Whereas for a subscriber, a print subscriber, the cost is somewhere around $20 and up, again, depending on your magazine. The other thing that's important to talk about when we talk about audiences is that for most, online audiences are distinct from your print audiences. And it's one of those things that we need to constantly be reinforcing to advertisers, because I don't think a lot of people are doing that. And certainly when we started working with clients a few years ago, we were not doing that at all. The other important thing to note is, and this is something that for those of you who are at Gwen's presentation will have heard, but I think it's really important in figuring out how best to monetize your online audience, that the basic principle of advertising, which is we provide access to an audience in an editorial environment that they trust. That's what advertisers want from us, right? They want access to that audience that trusts us as magazines to provide them with information. And this doesn't matter whether it's online, print, or social, advertisers still want access. So if you're a publication that has a large online audience, whether that's a Twitter feed, an e-newsletter, on your website, advertisers want access to that audience as well as your print audience. Few things as far as monetizing your audience is concerned. So we always need to talk about total audience, which is a combination of print, online, and social. The interaction of your online audience is also more frequent than your print audience. So unless, of course, you're a daily, in which case that doesn't apply to you, but I don't think from those who are in the webinar and here that there are very many who are dailies. The other question that we always ask, and this is a question that frustrates a lot of online marketing people, and I'm sorry for those of you in the room, but if you cannot monetize your online audience, then why are you pouring money, time, and resources into it? And that's something that we've had to confront with a bunch of different publications that we work with, where you're building this giant army of Facebook followers, of Twitter followers, of Instagram followers, of e-newsletter subscribers. You're spending all this time, and for most of us, we don't have a lot of time, and then at the end, you're not seeing any return on that investment, right? So that's a question that we often confront clients with and also ourselves with, is how do we get that money back? We'll talk about some ways today that we can do that. All online activities have at least 3 goals. Incent your online audience to become part of your print audience, provide opportunities to monetize your unique online audience, and provide an engagement for your audience with your publication that can be demonstrated to advertisers via the actions the online audience takes. So really proving to your advertisers that the audience that you have online, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or e-newsletter, that they'll take certain actions, whether that's subscribing to your magazine, attending an event, liking something, entering a contest. All these are actions that you can demonstrate to advertisers that that audience will take. And that's where you can monetize that online audience. Some online monetizing opportunities: sponsorships, contests, social media. We'll talk about sort of these three things today. I know that some people had questions about monetizing your blog, and we'll talk as well about how to do that via some sponsorship opportunities. I cannot stress this point enough. I know that for many magazines, time is always the biggest factor, right? You'll hear this presentation today, you'll wake up Monday morning and you'll be like, okay, so now what are we gonna do? And my number one recommendation to everybody is always ask before launching a new initiative. I think in magazines historically, we see that people are always asking their readers, right? People want to do a reader survey every couple of years, update the content on who the readers are, where they are. And one of the things we have been experimenting with is doing advertiser surveys, which is great because it gives you an opportunity to get out there and talk to your advertisers and get some feedback from them about what they like, what they don't like, what they might be interested in advertising or sponsoring or putting money into. And this creates buy-in, right? So if you do a survey and you ask some people what sorts of things they'll do, and they say, oh yeah, we'd buy, this sponsorship of this particular event or this contest, right? Then you can go back to those people and say, okay, we did this survey and you said on the survey that you might be interested. Here's what that looks like. It really allows you to get focused based on what the advertisers are willing to buy into. The other great thing about it is that feedback from advertisers can shape the product rather than simply launching it and hoping they'll sign up. I think most of us probably have been there where you think, okay, we've got this great idea, we're gonna launch it to the advertisers, and then nobody buys in. We've certainly experienced this in our own work. And so doing a survey first can allow you to ask advertisers specifically about elements of a sponsorship that they'd like to see, what sort of things they'd be interested in sponsoring, what sort of specific sponsorship elements they want to see, what they're measuring in terms of return on investment or ROI, that kind of thing, which ultimately saves time in the long run, which is really important, I think, in this day and age. The other thing that I would say is make sure you take the time to circulate it to all advertisers and prospects. And prospects is really important because for a lot of people, sending them a survey, if there's somebody who's been on your list of a potential client for a while, really shows that you want to hear from them even if they haven't bought in yet, so you can take the time to get feedback from them. It also provides another contact point for you. I think a lot of times in advertising, we're pitching people the same old thing, whereas, doing something like a survey allows you to just hear from them, for them to give feedback to you. So this is actually an email survey that we sent out. This does not have to be, I know reader surveys for a lot of people tend to be these long drawn out processes where you bring in a consultant, you meet with them, you spend weeks and weeks and weeks poring over the questions, then you launch the thing, and then you wait for the results, then you tabulate the results, then you release the results. Advertiser surveys are a lot simpler than that. We tend to do them really informally, either via email or via phone. Some people like to do a combination of both. Really depends on your advertisers and how you best communicate with them. In this case, Escarpment Views, we did this a couple of years ago, and they were in a similar position where they just wanted to know, they had a bunch of ideas, and they wanted us to help them decide what ideas to pursue. And so we suggested they do this advertiser survey. It's very informal. One of the key things about it is you lead with the idea that you really are trying to get opinions from the advertisers. This makes them feel all warm and fuzzy, and everybody likes that, right? It's a relationship building thing for sure. So it just says, as one of our preferred advertisers, your opinion is valuable to us. As Escarpment Views magazine continues to grow, we want to respond in ways that you might find valuable. Kindly reply to these questions in this brief survey to help us improve your service to you. So unlike a reader survey, you don't need a prize, right? You don't need, win an iPad or whatever. This is really about helping your advertisers help you and vice versa. It's a feel-good thing. So then we went through a list of 8 questions with them, specifically asking about different parts of the magazine. So they were thinking of adding a regular column on sustainable gardening. If we went ahead with this, would you be interested in advertising in conjunction with this? Well, for those of you who can't see very well, they actually said no, they wouldn't be. So, and there were quite a few no's to that particular question. So ultimately they were like, we're not going to do a sustaining gardening column. Based on the success of the following editorial features, we are considering introducing these new sponsorship opportunities. Of these, which would you be interested in? Center photo spread. They have their magazine has a beautiful big center photo spread of a nature photo. Sometimes it's, for those of you who've been to the Escarpment, you know how beautiful it is. It's this beautiful big land mass with water and mountains, and so they have a big photo spread every issue. So they asked about sponsorship of that. They also asked about sponsorship of the book reviews section because they do a few book reviews. Coming events calendar, maybe. Now, maybe is an interesting one because what we found is that people who say maybe in a survey like this are actually potentially interested. So that's an area where you might want to follow up with people and launch that initiative. Another one that came up for a lot of people was they're considering moving our back page map. So their outside back cover was actually a map because they hadn't had a lot of success selling it. So they hadn't really even come up with a price because they hadn't had a lot of success selling it. So they opened this up as a question to advertisers. We're thinking of moving our back page map to a page inside the magazine and making the outside back cover available for advertising. Would that prime position be of interest to you? Yes. Right there, you've got buy-in from that advertiser that they would consider advertising in that position. They also they have a big map in their magazine, so they had a sponsorship question about that. At a very reasonable price point, would you like to find out options for highlighting your listing in our map and having it stand out? Yes. So again, buy-in is really key. Some other questions here. It's a great place to ask questions if you're coming up to an anniversary. So these guys were coming up to their 5th anniversary. To celebrate this business milestone, we're thinking of publishing a special Best of Escarpment Views extra commemorative issue as determined by the features most often downloaded, blah, blah, blah. If we publish this in April or May, would that be something that's of interest to you? Not necessarily. And then there was another question about features online for their anniversary. So if you're thinking of launching a year in review issue or any sort of other special interest publication, an advertiser survey is a great way to get buy-in. Whether that's online or in print or sponsorship of a particular feature, it's always important to ask. Keys to success. Ask about things you can actually deliver on. I think a lot of times in our planning phases, we end up blue skying things. I got a call from my mother the other day after she watched that Red Bull event where they shot the rocket up into space and the guy jumped out of the rocket, and she's like, you should think about doing something really big like that for some of your clients. And I was like, yeah, okay. I'll get my hundreds of thousands of dollars ready and we'll just launch a rocket into space. So ask about things you can actually deliver on. Otherwise, you create these dreaded under-promise or over-promise and under-deliver, which nobody likes. Follow up. This is also an important one. We found that we sent the email at once, originally with Escarpment Views, and we got a few replies, but not very many. But it was sort of the second email and also the phone call that really helped sort of get response from people. You can't please everybody. Look for commonalities. This is also important. A lot of times you'll get a variety of responses. You'll get 1 or 2 people who want to do something, 3 or 4 people who want to do something else. So really look for those questions and those suggested things you're thinking about doing where lots of people have bought in. Share the results with your advertisers once tabulated. It's really important after the survey is done and you've figured out what you're going to do to send a letter out to everybody going, based on your feedback, valuable advertisers, we're launching the following things. Here's how to get in touch with us about those. Here's what the cost might be, et cetera, et cetera. Sponsorships. Okay, let's talk about sponsorships. And one of the things, I think that sponsorships is a real buzzword right now. I think a lot of people like to throw that word around. It seems to be a pretty hot topic for a lot of people. So I wanted to just start. This is a definition that I got off of Investopedia, sort of the money version of Wikipedia, if you will. Sponsorship is a cash and or in-kind fee paid to a property, typically in sports, arts, entertainment, or causes, in return for access to the exploitable commercial potential associated with that property. While the sponsoree, property being sponsored, may be nonprofit, unlike philanthropy, sponsorship is done with the expectation of a commercial return. Cannot stress that enough. Expectation of a commercial return. What is your sponsor going to get? They're expecting to get some sort of value for their money. While sponsorship can deliver increased awareness, brand building, and propensity to purchase, it is different from advertising. Unlike advertising, sponsorship cannot communicate specific product attributes. I actually disagree with this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Nor can it stand alone. Sponsorship requires support elements. And while advertising messages are controlled by the advertiser, sponsors do not control the message that is communicated. Again, we'll talk about some ways that your sponsors can control the message, which can add value for them. Consumers decide what a sponsorship means. That is actually very true, and we'll talk about finding sponsors that really align with your brand. We've had some learning from that we'll get into. Keys to success. Okay, so when we talk about a sponsorship, and we'll get to some examples in a minute, the most important thing is that whatever you want to have sponsored, that you provide opportunities for that company or that sponsor to be involved at every step along the way. So whether it's a contest or an event or a blog, you really want to start by creating some space on your website that's sort of an online home for that product. So we always tell people, build a page on your website where the event, et cetera, contest can live. The other major important thing, promote the event, contest, blog, fill in the blank there, through all of your channels regularly and repeatedly, both online and in print. So that goes back to the total audience thing that we just talked about. Make sure that you're promoting it via all of the channels you have in a coherent way. What a lot of times we like to tell people is make a list of all the ways you could promote it. We've had some pretty long lists from some people, which include, putting someone outside their office and passing out flyers of whatever the thing they're looking to have sponsored is. We don't necessarily recommend that, but, make a list for sure. Also on the list, make sure you include house ads and exchange ads. This we'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes, but it's really important. I think exchange ads and house ads are something that we a lot of times don't think about as a way to be monetized via a sponsorship. We run, whatever the case may be, we run house ads for a contest or an event or whatever. We don't include the sponsor of that event in those. Allow time for all the above to occur, long lead times. Again, we like to tell people, if you're going to launch a contest or an event or something like that, allow a couple of issues so that you can put ads for whatever it is you're working on into those issues and give that sponsor the extra value. Sponsors need to be engaged in as many different ways as possible and wherever there is an interaction with the audience. For a lot of people, they don't think about all the ways they're interacting with the audience. So if you're sending out something for a contest, is there an opportunity for the sponsor to have an insert in that mailing? Is there an opportunity for that sponsor to have to give a talk about what the importance of this event is to them if it's an event? What are all the different ways? More keys. Unlike advertising, you need to be aware of competing sponsors. This is really important, and something that we really want to stress as well is that unlike advertising, where you can have, Fluvog shoes and Gravity Pope and all these other different companies, Aldo maybe, We've now exhausted the list of shoe companies that I have. You really want to be aware of competing sponsors. It does provide a unique opportunity to leverage exchange advertising. We sort of covered that. We need to have a variety of sponsorship levels, and we'll show you a case study in a minute of how to set that up so that sponsors have an opportunity to increase their involvement depending on their contribution. This is done via the sponsorship package. It's also an excellent opportunity to launch new advertising opportunities. So if you have new products, a sponsorship is a great way to give people an opportunity to try that product built into the cost of a sponsorship. So this is a case study. This is Broken Pencil's event Canzine. And for those of you who don't know, Canzine is an event that takes place both here in Vancouver and in Toronto in the fall. We just got through it for this year. And this is their sponsorship package. Canzine is proudly presented by Fluvog Shoes. So everywhere we mention Canzine, including things like this, we mention Fluvog Shoes because they're our presenting national sponsor, and we love them. So this is the levels. These are the different levels. So we have, for Canzine, because it's both a national and a regional event, we have regional opportunities, which are up here. We have a national opportunity. We have presenting regional sponsor, which is there's two of those opportunities. And then we have a presenting national sponsor. So presenting national sponsor is our top tier sponsorship, which this year was Fluvog Shoes, and we hope very much they'll be back. And the presenting national sponsorship covers everything. So it covers placement at the event. It covers an ad in the issue. It covers an insert into the Canzine door loot bag. So when you show up at the event, everybody gets a little gift bag. It covers an insert in that. It also covers naming rights. So wherever we talk about Canzine, we say it's presented by John Fluvog Shoes. And it also covers website advertising, e-newsletter advertising, and an ad in our very new mobile app called the Nub. So this is our top tier at presenting national sponsor. Then all other tiers below that have less. So what we've basically done is we've taken some of the elements of presenting national sponsor away from all the other levels. And at a regional sponsorship level, it's actually quite small. So rather than the inside front cover of our publication, at a regional level, you get a quarter-page ad. You get logo on all media, including the Canzine program and poster. You get a table at your choice of either Canzine, Vancouver, and Toronto, and you do get an insert in the loot bag. Then at the national level, you get an ad. You also get an ad on the Broken Pencil online marketplace. At the national level, you also get an ad on the Nub. When we launched this program, the Nub was something that we were just getting used to. So in order to sort of start selling those ads, we included them as a sponsorship, as a benefit for sponsors in Canzine. And then presenting a regional sponsor. Now, you'll note that presenting regional sponsor and presenting national sponsor, there can only be one presenting regional sponsor, and obviously there can only be one national sponsor. So again, it's just important to make sure that you're not offering that to too many people because there can be only one, and if you offer it to different groups of people, there's problems with competition, obviously. Another important thing to have in your sponsorship package is audience information. Just like a media kit, right? You want to have demographics, number of attendees. You want to have the time they spend at the event, and you also want to have their buying habits. So this is done via a survey that we do at Canzine that people fill out, and I think you can win a prize. I think it might be a gift certificate to a bookstore or an art supply store. Anyway, we took all the results from that and we put a little thing up here that says our audience buys stuff. 64% buy zines, comics, and books. 25% came to attend readings and the 1-2 Punch literary event. 83% came to attend a zine making workshop. Money spent on comics and graphic novels per year, $25, $10 to $25, 30%, $25 to $50, 30%, $50 to $100, 11%, and $100 or more, 27%. So this, again, is an important thing that sponsors want to see, that proves that the audience you have is there to buy stuff, and that's important because you want to show sponsors that you have the ability to get your audience to buy different products, and by extension, buy your sponsors' products. Again, this is for Canzine, this is the page on their website. Sorry about the screen cap, it's a bit mucky, but this is the online home for Canzine Toronto. And then there's also a corresponding one for Canzine Vancouver. This is the bottom of this web page. This is the logo, the infamous logo grid. So of course, Fluvog is always at the top on everything we have. Then we have Langara. This is for Vancouver, so we have Langara, The Cult, Anvil Press, our good friends at Magazines Canada, SFU Woodwards, and then we have a couple of media sponsors as well, CITR and things like that. So this, again, is sort of the graphic representation of the companies we brought on board for this. This is also duplicated then for our e-newsletter. So we send out 4 or 5 different e-newsletters over the course of the year for Canzine, about 2 months before we start sending out e-newsletters. And this logo spread is featured in every one of those e-newsletters, both for Vancouver and Toronto. Obviously, we change them for Vancouver and Toronto because the regional sponsors are different. Okay, this is our fabulous poster. Again, this was for Toronto. So again, Canzine is presented in association with John Fluvog Shoes. And then we also had a regional sponsor, which was Urban Cyclist. So they get a mention sort of just below the presenting sponsor. And then, of course, all of our other sponsors and funders and things go down there. What's next? This is our social media. So again, we mention our sponsors in our social media. Third one down here, you can see Ethical Bean. Visit our Facebook page of our Canzine West coffee sponsor, Ethical Bean, and learn about the great work they do. Again, just another benefit for the sponsors. And this is actually a great way to sort of get them integrated in our social media. Again, everywhere you promote your event, you're also promoting your sponsor. These are great. This is at the event itself, we do a thing where we have slides that are broadcast onto a wall. So these are some of the sponsors from a previous year. And again, it's the visual kind of thing that we send to people after the event is over to see this is the kind of impact you had. It's really important when you take pictures of anything to make sure there's people at the event in the pictures. The first couple of these we took, there weren't very many people. So literally I had to stand there and wait for sort of crowds to pass by the slide and then take the picture. But again, it's visual. It makes a great impact for the sponsor. These can also be ads. We've had some people ask us, would we project an ad onto the wall? Absolutely. Some people like to use their logo because it's a branding thing for them, but some people do like to use some sort of an ad or a call to action. And then this is a screen cap of the nub. So this is, again, that for the top tier sponsors, we included this as a value as part of the sponsorship. And it also gave us the opportunity, having ads in there, to show people that the product was there and people were advertising and that kind of thing. Great launch for this. Really helped us show when we didn't have any people advertising before this that it was a viable property and people were advertising in it. This is our program. So again, logo of Fluvog on the front there, and then this is the back. This is a house ad. It's not actually a Broken Pencil house ad. I couldn't find one in time, but this is a house ad for Geist in the Classroom. And again, we have sponsors for that program, and so we put their logos down along the bottom, and it says, did we mention that all this is free? Thanks to these generous sponsors of Geist in the Classroom. So just again, demonstrating that those sponsors are paying for this program to be free. This is another one. This is for a Geist writing workshop. And again, we've had sponsorship from UBC for that in the past. Now, the thing about both these ads that I just want to flag for people is that this is really where your exchange ads come into place. So while these are ads we ran in Geist itself, you know, oftentimes with this kind of thing, you run exchange ads in other magazines. And again, that's a real opportunity to amplify the engagement that you have with that sponsor. I mean, at Geist, we run 2 or 3 pages every issue of exchange ads. And I really started to hate them when I first started because we weren't making any money off the exchange ads. Like, it was just this thing where we weren't getting anything out of it, right? We were running these ads for things and nobody really knew if they were usually subscriber ads, and nobody really knew, were we getting subscribers, were we not getting subscribers? And so exchange ads, if you run them like this, then you're at least able to say to your sponsor at the end, we also got you all of this exposure in these other magazines via these ads. Contests. Okay, let's talk about contests. I'm a big believer in contests. Of all kinds and all stripes. Really great thing about a contest, has the built-in function of increasing your circulation and getting entrants to take other actions. Example, subscribe to email, follow, or friend on social media. I think it's really important when you do a contest. Contests are a lot of work. We run several at Geist. They're a lot of work. They require armies and armies of people to judge them, to evaluate them, to do all these sorts of things. They're a lot of work. The only reason, or one of the reasons, contests are worth it is they increase our circulation. So when you subscribe, or when you want to enter a contest at Geist, you have to be a subscriber. And people say, well, what if they're already a subscriber? That's fine. If you're already a subscriber, we'll add your subscription on to the next issue, right? And that action, that interaction, in terms of people who enter the contest, is critical to demonstrate to your sponsors, because you can go to your sponsors and say, these people had to buy a subscription to get into this contest. They're already taking a buying action to be able to participate in this. And we'll talk about different ways you can leverage sponsorship of a contest, but for sponsors, one of the most important things they want to see is buying action. Also allows you to subscribe to an email, follow a friend on social media. I would suggest for most people that the biggest priority is getting that subscription. However, if you can't get that subscription, or if you think you can get more than that, I would also get people to sign up for your e-newsletter or follow you on social media. It's a great opportunity for your publication to grow your audience and prove that your existing audience is interacting with your publications. So this is one of the questions that came up that I got in advance, was how do you convert likes to money and followers to money? This is how you do it right here. If you can get people to enter a contest and prove to that advertiser that your likes and your follows are for contest entries, then maybe you can get that advertiser to sponsor that contest and put up the prize, pay for some extra prizing, that sort of thing. And it's also a great opportunity for advertisers to interact with your audience. There's a few different ways that can happen. A lot of times it's great if you have somebody who's an advertiser who might be on the fence a little bit about whether or not their product is the right fit for your audience, a great way to demonstrate that is to get them to put up a prize for a contest that people then have to enter. So you can use those contest results. You know, if you put up a prize for, say, a new pen, if you had Mont Blanc come to you and say, okay, well, we're not sure, we're on the fence a little bit. You say, all right, that's totally understandable. What if we ran a contest? We need you to give away a pen, and we need you to put in some money to cover the cost of us administrating the contest. Let's call that, I don't know, you could figure it out, but let's call that $1,000, right? Then you go back and you line up for that, for Mont Blanc, essentially, how all the different ways you would promote that contest. E-newsletter, social media, Facebook, house ads, et cetera, et cetera. Then you use the number of people who enter that contest, right, to go back to that advertiser and say, see, all of these people entered this contest. This is how many likes we got. This is how many reposts we got of that. This is obviously a great fit. Let's then talk about your advertising campaign. This is the Geist contest hive, home, mecca, whatever you want to call it. It features all of our contests. We also, for a lot of the Geist contests, we publish the winners. Depending on your contest, that may or may not be something you want to do. Publishing the winners takes on a whole other element because then you have to get the editorial people involved, and it takes lots of time, and things have to be edited and yada, yada, yada. But again, if you have a sponsor that's willing to pay for that to cover those costs, then it might be worth it. This is for the 10th annual literary postcard contest, which just closed. We don't have a sponsor for this yet, so if there's anybody out there who wants to sponsor it, you can call me. We can talk about that. This is the nitty-gritty, as they call it. So again, here's all the prizes. A lot of times people use prize money. I think it's a great opportunity when you want to use prize money to go to a sponsor and say, listen, we need X amount of money to cover the cost of a contest. So, you know, in the case of the eraser contest, it was $1,000. Am I doing that math right? Yeah, it was $1,000. So, you know, if we'd have gone out to somebody like Sanford or a pen company and said, you know, we just need money to cover the cost. Sponsors love to cover costs. I don't know what it is. I don't know why that is, but if you have a sponsor and they like to feel like without them, you wouldn't be able to put this contest on. You wouldn't be able to give away this money. If you are doing situations where you have a sponsor covering the cost of prizing, it's always good. Go down to Kinko's, get one of those big checks made, put the sponsor's logo on it, take lots of pictures. People love to be part of that big check kind of a thing. We've done that a few times. We did that regularly when I was at Rebus in the Adopt a Library program. That's what really sold it for people, was they got to give the big check to the kids. Entry fee, $20, includes a 1-year subscription to Geist, Canada's favorite literary magazine. There is no opt-in, opt-out, nothing. There's no choice about that. If you want to enter our contest, if you want a shot at winning $600 and the Geist Eraser Trophy, which is wonderful, then you pay your $20 like everybody else. You can enter online or you can enter by snail mail. We really try and encourage people to enter online so we can capture their email addresses. Again, here's an excerpt of the e-newsletter. We mention in here the poetry contest right in the middle there for those of you who can't see the pointer thing online. Okay, we only got about 15 minutes left, so we're going to talk about social media opportunities. I think if you do one thing next week, you think seriously about monetizing your social media opportunities. Because otherwise, and we said this at the beginning, but I'll mention it again, why are we spending all this time creating followers and having likes and all this other stuff if we're not going to get paid from that? And I've talked to lots of different people about this, and some people say, well, what if people leave? And again, I would say to you, if you try this and they start to leave, just stop doing it. It's like anything else. Just knock it off if they start to leave. I think the key is, and we'll talk about some keys here, needs to be labeled as a sponsored post. So you have to do that. You have to let people know that it's advertising. Just like any sort of advertorial that you might run or anything else, it needs to be labeled as a sponsored post. It needs to provide value to the community. This is the most important one. I think that where people misunderstand the opportunity in social media is they think, right, I'm going to open my social media to Tide laundry detergent, and GMC, and all these other things, and that's going to annoy people, which it probably would, and then they're all going to leave, and then I'm going to be left with nothing. It needs to provide value to the community. So if you have a snowboard magazine, right, you don't want to be selling, you know, directly to somebody with hard sell type messaging, buy this Northern Face jacket, right? You want to do things that the community is going to find value in. Some examples of that: contests, special sales promotions are great, free trials or free samples all work very well, right? We've had great success with all of these. We'll get into some examples. So this is how to lay this out in your media kit, and I'll provide this presentation to anybody who wants it after the fact. That's totally fine. This is 49 Shelf. For those of you who don't know, the easiest way to explain this is the Canadian version of Goodreads. It's much better. It's more Canadian. Anyway, sponsored posts are available at a cost of $350. When we started this, we had about 6,000 followers on Twitter and another 2,000 or 3,000 on Facebook, likes on Facebook. Today, that's up to about 8,000. We might be close to 9 by now. Anyway, it's a 4-post rotation. We accept sponsored content under the following terms. All sponsored posts are subject to editorial approval. If we feel the topic isn't of likely interest to our readers, we'll not be able to accept the booking. Really, the test for us is there value for the readers? All sponsored posts are clearly labeled sponsored content. So here's some examples. This is House of Anansi. They did a contest with us, or sorry, they did a sale with us. So they're doing a holiday sale. They offered 30% off. This did very well. Now, when I say it did very well, we got some likes, a few, a couple maybe, but the exposure to this audience was what was important for them. Here it is in Twitter. So we have sponsored post. The schedule for the Galiano Island Lit Festival is up, and full festival passes are 20% off until January 1st. So again, it's a value to our audience to know about these things. Here's the House of Anansi thing in Twitter. Again, with a link. They're tracking how many clicks that gets, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left. So questions. Thanks so much. So the total value that we brought in this year was $6,300. Of that, the Fluvog sponsorship was $1,500. I think it depends on the size of your audience and what you're able to deliver to that audience. So, for example, I know at the Walrus, they're charging a lot more than we are for Canzine because they have a bigger audience. So it really depends on a combination of the size of your audience and what the different benefits are. Depends on what your capacity is in an organization. Some people do really big winner announcements. MusicWorks has a contest where they have a writing contest and a composition contest. They do an event around that contest. It also serves as an issue launch for them. So again, if you have a sponsor who's really looking to get FaceTime with your audience, a launch is a great way to do that. Although we've also done it where, you know, for Geist, for example, a lot of our writing contests, we announce the winner online and via social media, and then we publish the winner in the print magazine. So I think one of the most important strategies, and we'll just go back to this is the Geist newsletter. We do not send out anything without an offer for print. We've tried all kinds of different offers. We're working on one right now that is 9 years of Geist for $90. It's $10 a year. We've actually had a fairly good uptake on that. But online, we're always providing people with links and hashtags and all that kind of thing to drive people to a print subscription. This time of year, for a lot of people, it's gifts. We've also experimented with doing GIFs around different events, so Valentine's Day, Father's Day, all those sort of different holidays. And the great thing about online is you can launch those offers in the online space. This is a weekly e-newsletter. So again, using frequency of the online interaction, we've launched different offers online that ask people to become print subscribers. Think online, we've seen some great opportunities for people to interact with each other and also to create online content. There's a lot of people right now doing different things with Instagram where people are, doing photos of different things and sharing them with people. That's a bit harder in terms of getting that back to a print subscription. But again, if you look at ways to publish that content in the print subscription, it's a funny thing, but people like to see themselves in print. I haven't met anybody yet who doesn't like the opportunity to see something online published in print. And that's a great user thing because people will go out and buy that product either on the newsstand or maybe they'll subscribe if they're in it. No taking copies off the newsstand. I think that sends the wrong message to your advertisers. I think it sends a horrible message to your advertisers. And I think that if your sales have dropped on the newsstand, newsstands are dying on the whole. So I'm not surprised if that's a problem. We've had some problems. I think the thing is to think about other places where you might be able to get a copy of the magazine into people's hands. What are the controlled circuit initiatives you can do? We have Geist in the classroom. We have a thing with some theater companies we've tried where you can get Geist in lobbies. If the traditional newsstand doesn't work, sell it in a store where people want to buy a magazine or buy a product. Depends. There's a lot of people right now getting editors to do that kind of thing, and I love editors to death, but I think it's important to have a dedicated sales team to do that kind of thing. I think it's a fine balance because for a lot of people, if it's a 1 or 2 person publication or if it's a smaller publication, then we all end up doing a little bit of everything, and I get that. But I think if you want sales to do well, you need to hire people to do that. I think that in a blog context, it's important to be able to demonstrate how many people follow your blog, and not just the blog, but obviously if you have a blog, you're promoting that blog via social media. And I think for a lot of people, the first step we recommend is to offer somebody exclusivity on that blog in terms of an ad spot. Go to a company that you think would be a good fit for you and say, look, I have this blog, this is my audience, this is how much they interact with me on a daily or an hourly basis or whatever the case may be. I will give you the exclusive rights to this blog for X. And start with that and see what you can do with that and then build it from there. So we did receive some funding for grants for Canzine. So I don't know that offhand. I think that it covered a lot of our costs and there was some profit in it. Also because we've integrated our venues for the event as sponsors. So, and we also charge people $5 at the door, which covers some costs, and we sell beer and we sell all these other things. So I would say offhand that made a profit, but don't quote me on that, Mary, because I don't have access to those financials. I think that e-newsletters, as we were just talking about, e-newsletters are a great way to drive people towards a print subscription. And once you have their email address, you can sort of, obviously a lot of the online content we produce is distinct from the print content and is unique. So as many opportunities as you can to drive people to an offer. I think e-newsletter offers to drive to print are certainly cheaper than a print, but the conversions are not amazing, which is all the more reason to start the e-newsletter and then put ads into that. I think that in terms of driving advertising towards your print from the online, one of the things that we've really sort of experimented with is getting that audience from online to print, and bundling, right? So bundling, in the beginning, 5-10 years ago, we used to have to sort of bundle the print with the online with the idea that the online was cheaper. I think so the online was more of sort of the value add. I think for a lot of publications today, it's the reverse. Their online audience has almost eclipsed their print, and online is the thing that people want to buy. It's what looks good in their marketing plans. So try doing it the other way and saying, okay, if you want to buy this much online that we know you want, we'll do some discounting on the print side. That's one thing we've noticed that works. And also sponsorship, because that changes the question from online or print to total audience and a sponsorship that encompasses print and online.